Well, good morning. Coffee Conversations with Greg J is on. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Yeah. Feeling good. Sun is shining. You know where we live, the Los Angeles Rams, champions of the football league, National Football League. Isn't that beautiful? Can't say world champions anymore. I was in Africa one time and was looking for the brothers to turn the channel to basketball, and they looked at me like I was out of my cotton picking mind, right? And said that they prefer soccer. So that ensued into a sports dialogue. And the guy asked me, "How can you guys call yourselves world champions when you don't play the world?" And I was stumped on that one. So we'll just say they're champions of the NFL, right? Yeah. Good job. Wow. Good for the city, for the region, we should say. Because I know here in Long Beach, where we originate, we're just a stone's throw from the city of Los Angeles and even closer to the city of Inglewood, where the SoFi Stadium is located. And there sure were a lot of Cincinnati Bengals fans around wearing their T-shirts and saying, "Who Dey, who Dey, who Dey," all over the city. It was really, really something, right? One thing they got to see is, we got a gang of ships rolling through here, Long Beach port, jumping, cracking. They're busy over there. I like to sleep with my windows open, right? And in the middle of the night, you can hear, they're over there making it happen, trying to unclog the supply chain that they're talking about on the news. And I guess they're doing a good job at it. We're going to find out this morning because we're talking to the president of the Harbor Commission. We'll comment a little bit about the state of the port report that just came out. Figure out what they're going to do, what plays they're running over there at the port. I was talking to somebody yesterday and they were saying that there was someone that said there's hundreds of thousands of jobs out there at the port. And we'll find out about that too. But then, as we I want to say plod along through 2022. We're already in February. A lot has already happened in this new year where we're faced with election time. And so we just want to kind of prognosticate, punditry, observe, and analyze the political landscape that is before us. So, always got my friends out here that are, making it happen. Got they got seats at the table, got eyes on the prize. They're there, they want to come through and sip coffee with Brother Greg. And I really, really do appreciate it. One such friend is the Honorable Stephen Neal. There he is. Good morning, sir.
How are you doing, Greg? Excuse me.
Doing all right.
Always good to be with you, brother. What's happening? What's happening?
Man, I'm over here fighting a good fight.
Yes, you are. Yes,
We
you
too,
are. It's always good to
we
join
kind
you.
of we don't have enough cream in our coffee on this broadcast, so I think Facebook tried to knock me off a little bit, but we still can't. What does it say? What do we say in church? I shall not be moved.
I shall not be moved. Hey, look, when you start heralding a message of truth, the let's just be honest. Conformity is the way of the world, right? And
Mhm.
when you're viewed as a nonconformist, you can be targeted.
Yeah.
So just keep doing what you're doing, man. I love what you do. You're getting information out to particularly our people, and it's important information. And him that have an ear to hear, let him hear.
Let him hear. Amen. That's what's up. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And yes, sir. There's really good conversation we had with the Rabbi Scott Fox from Temple Israel in Long Beach. And, we wanted to break it all down with Goldberg getting suspended for her remarks. And I was expecting him to say, "Well, she shouldn't have said it." But he said, "I can see her point." it was it was something else, you know. Well, listen, I know you are the president of the Harbor Commission. You must be crazy busy because I see the ships moving.
Oh man, yeah, this is probably this is one of the most interesting things I've ever done in my life. I was familiar with the activities at the port. Being a former council member, because we have to approve everything, because the harbor department in Long Beach, or the port of Long Beach, is actually a city department. It's
Mhm.
the harbor department of the city. So the very unique thing about this is that it's a city entity, right? It's a city party, but it's basically dealing with world trade and commerce, and it's governed by federal law, state law,
Mhm.
and really the economic engine for this entire region. Greg, if we didn't have the ports of LA and the ports of Long Beach in our area, you were talking about the region. If we did not have these two ports, we would be Detroit.
Oh man. Oh my
That's
goodness.
the impact. There are in the region, we estimate like 575,000 jobs that are
Mhm.
tied to goods movement,
Mhm.
supply chain, right? And um, everyone blame for all the problems. Everyone points their finger at us, the port. But at the end of the day, I'm the landlord. I'm not
Mhm.
running any operation.
Mhm.
I'm not moving any cargo. I, they rent from me. I'm the landlord, and the governing body of the land, or falling under all the regulations. The port of Long Beach is the greenest port in the country.
Mhm. Mhm.
The dichotomy is, um, this region has the worst air in the country.
Mhm. Mhm.
So there are all these regulatory um, bogeys that we have to meet to clean the air, but you have to balance that with um, the economic impact that it
Mhm.
has. And there's
Mhm.
so many different components. When you talk about a supply chain, that's exactly what they're: shippers, they're marine terminal operators, they're dock workers, they're
Mhm.
truckers, there's warehousing, and then all the auxiliary businesses that work with them.
Mhm.
All of that is tied to port infrastructure.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like I say, it's fascinating, and everyone's pointing their fingers at all the ships out here in the San Pedro Bay, but this is happening all over the world. You can go to any
Right.
port in the country and they have the same condition. The reason why we're in the news so much is that 50% of all imports that come into the country come through these two ports.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Mhm.
we have the port of Long Beach touches every congressional district in the country. The goods that come through there touch everyone. That's
Wow.
why there's so many eyes on us.
Mhm. Mhm. It's interesting. You touched on a couple things that I wanted to discuss today. Number one is the environment, right? Because when
Yep.
I'm out there on my run along the shoreline and I see all those ships out there, I'm like, ooh, dang, that's got to be nasty water, smoke in the air, all of that whole thing. I mean, but it is a byproduct of, where we are, right? It's like the port, it's commerce happening. What does the port do to make it the greenest port, as you say, in the world? And how do you what preventative measures or remedies do you have you know
Well,
for the
you can't.
pollution that's happening?
Absolutely. The environmental responsibility that we have is probably, um, that's the most important thing that we face, right? And then also maintaining our um, economic position,
Mhm.
right? Because when you look at the ports from a national perspective, the port of Los Angeles is the number one container port in the country, and the port of Long Beach is the number two container port in the
Mhm.
country. So combine when you combine and think about it like this: we're competitors, right? LA and Long Beach. We're competing for business. We're competing for folks to come to our port, but we have to work collaboratively on on the environmental um, requirements that we have. So those are the things that we work very collaborative, and we work collaboratively as much as we can. We we've started a training center. There's a training center that's a collaboration between the Port of LA, the Port of Long Beach, and the IOW, the dock workers, and Governor Newsom. Um, uh, he gave us $110 million in the state budget to make that happen, which is going to be tremendous for this region. And you talked about the jobs, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. But all of that is going to play out for that. But back to your original questions, what many of the narrative out there is that the trucks are dirty, but it's the trucks are dirty, diesel trucks, and we're moving toward electric trucks. But let's be real, there's no info. We're moving things all across the country. How far can an electric truck get today? You don't have. We have to turn over next year the trucks that come into the port. The only trucks that come into the port, they will have to be 2014 and over. Right. Wow. There's going to have to meet. So there are plenty of trucks that can't even come on the port because they're not environmentally clean. So we're moving toward, of course, an electric fleet, but the technology is not there. How are you going to get goods all the way to Chicago as far as I can get to San Bernardino? And those are the challenges that we're working through, because we've taken a position that, there's zero emission, and what's more readily available right now is near zero emission. So the Port of Long Beach has made investments in near zero so that we can eliminate particulates now. And the article that came out in the Times talking about all the things that we're not doing, I think is ingenuous in the fact that if you look at the statistics, particularly of the Port of Long Beach over the last, 15, 20 years, we have, when I say we're the greenest port, we made several steps to, when ships come into Long Beach, they plug into electric grid. The challenge is they're not doing that all over the place. If everything was more standardized, and that's the thing in this industry, and one of the good things that I've seen come out of this challenge, the supply chain challenge that's happening everywhere, is that it's given us a focus, and the national attention that we've gotten, the national money that we've gotten, from the federal government, from the Biden administration, and also from the state, is going to help us continue down the path of greening the port, meaning that the ships are far dirtier than the trucks.
I was going to ask you.
Yeah. And for us, we have for our infrastructure plan, we have a $1.5 billion rail infrastructure project that we're working on. It's going to be completed in the next 10 years. That's going to take a large percentage of those truck moves into the rail system. And rail is much more cleaner than the truck. So the big argument is, how do you get to zero emissions, and how soon can you get there? And we're committed.
I saw an article one time about a person who had invented some sort of cover for the smokestacks of the ships, right?
Right.
And so I guess every ship that comes in gets covered.
No, it's ideally, if that happened, that would clean the air too, but that's not happening. Every ship is not getting. We have those ships in the Long Beach. Yes, we utilize that. We utilize that technology in Long Beach. But see, that's not standardized. So you can come to Long Beach and you have to do, and then you have to think about it. This is a global community. So we really need to raise everybody else to the standards that we have in Long Beach and LA. That's and those are the things we're pushing at a national conversation. It's like, one, it's if you have to come here and you have to meet all of these regulatory standards, but then you go to, and I'm not trying to implicate any other ports, but it's just the reality of what the industry is.
Sure.
Right? And this is a big money industry.
Yeah.
Trade is and really, really important. And like I said, without these two ports in this region, um, these communities would be in bad shape.
Mhm, mhm.
Really, really bad shape. When you look at the economic input impact that is a byproduct of the work that comes out of there. So there's a critical balance of meeting environmental um, responsibility, and we've met every bogey that we're committed to meeting those. But um, oftentimes, and this is just my humble opinion, I've been on the commission for 3 years in Long Beach. The Harbor Commission is appointed by the mayor. You can do 2 6-year terms. So I'm in the middle of a 6-year term.
Mhm.
Um, it's rare that people do 12 years at the port, but they're, you know, we're going to talk about politics too. A new mayor comes in, there's probably a new commission.
Right, right, right,
That I mean, let's just be real. That's kind of how those things work.
right. Put their own people in place.
Exactly.
That's right. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. You mentioned other ports, and I can see that here personally. We import, coffee from Cameroon, West Africa, and it comes into the country in uh, Charleston, South Carolina, and our last containers sat off the coast of Charleston for about a month before we
That
could come through the traffic.
Greg, that's what I'm saying. This is, there's heightened attention on Los Angeles and Long Beach because of the volume that we
Mhm,
produce nationally,
mhm,
right? So it seems like the problem is exacerbated here, but it's not. It's happening everywhere.
mhm,
Uh,
mhm,
the real issue, and this is going to go on, man. Let's just be real. This challenge, a lot of it is pandemic driven,
mhm,
right? For months, and you mentioned Charleston, so think about ports too as logistics. If you're coming from Africa, you're not going to ship to the West Coast.
right.
Most of our trade, so our biggest trade partner in the United States is Asian trade,
Mhm,
particularly China.
mhm,
So the the bulk of the imports for the country come through here. So if you're shipping from Africa, yeah, you're going to go to an East Coast port,
mhm,
right?
mhm, mhm,
But the biggest trade partner of the United States is China.
mhm.
And that's why we have and it's so much easier for them to ship to the West Coast. They're not going to go all the way around and go to Charleston. So that, but they may go to Houston, they
Mhm,
may go to Seattle, they may
mhm.
go to Oakland. You know what I mean? That's the competitive, um, that's the competitive element of maritime trade.
Are we still in a trade war with China? What happened?
Um, we're not in a trade war, but the political landscape with China always has an impact on particularly goods movement on the West
Mhm,
Coast.
mhm, 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 mhm. All right. Listen, so the state of the port report just came out. State of the port report, it just came out and everything. What are you most proud of? What's the biggest, like the shining light right now?
Well, if we look at it from a business perspective, we're the most productive right now than we've ever been. We're moving more containers right now. The narrative is, I was in the store and somebody was saying, "Oh, all the ships out there because the lazy union workers aren't working." The union people have been working around the clock.
Right.
It's when we say a supply chain, like I mentioned, there's the terminal operators. The workers are just the particularly the IOW. They're charged with unloading the ships. Can't unload the ships until they get into the harbor, right? So, but they have been working around the clock, and we're breaking records every month for good movement. And then the other from my perspective, what I see the challenge with the supply chain in general is you've got 100-year-old infrastructure that was not created for the kind of volume that we're seeing right now.
Mhm, mhm,
And all
mhm,
this is is really forced us to do is look at, we have to make changes. That's why I was the over the course of the last few months been in a lot of meetings with a lot of government officials, particularly federal level, because the Biden administration, I will credit the Biden administration and President Biden for bringing all those entities together, all those different entities, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Shippers, you know, workers, he's bringing everybody in the room and saying, you know, everybody's got to do their part to make this thing work.
Mhm.
Because at the end of the day, Greg, somebody in the supply chain is making a whole lot of money and they're very happy with the way things are.
You know what I was gonna say, folks, it does not sound like folks going to the bank on a regular basis.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Yes.
that's what,
That's big
that's
business,
right.
right there,
Right. So, but you have to balance that as well with, a rising tide lifts all boats. So
Mhm,
there's been a lot of good conversation and one of the things that we do at the port is convene all of these entities, right?
mhm,
Remember, I'm
mhm,
just a landlord. I'm not running any operation. I'm not scheduling the ships to come over. And one of the biggest things, though, the thing that, going back to your question about what I'm most proud of, I could put it in three things, maybe not necessarily in this order. One is that the port staff, the all the folk, the port staff in particular
mhm,
is stupendous, right? They've been working around the clock because it's really been a challenging year with all the attention and all the things that we have to face. And
mhm,
we have to meet these regulatory guidelines. We have to balance this trade. You know, there's a lot of moving parts, and the staff has been great. During COVID, and people moved out of the building and working from home. So I shout out to the staff, but also just to um, the workers down on the docks who get blamed for, everybody points at them, but these guys have been working around the clock as well. Like I said, we're breaking records of good movement, but we really have to look at the infrastructure and how we move those goods. So
mhm,
I mentioned the $1.5 billion investment we're making in the rail system, right? Which is going to alleviate the need for thousands of trucks, right?
mhm,
And should benefit the region as well. We're working with the railroads. Uh, we're working with the Port of Los Angeles. It's just those things, the things that we can do to deal with the kind of volumes that we're going to see from now on, right? We're going to see these type of volumes that we're seeing probably for a while, and then we have the regulatory things.
mhm, mhm,
So I'm proud of the work that we've done, moving all the cargo in the midst of all of that. The second thing is we're really looking, in this environment of social justice and social equity. Um, we're looking at how we can ensure that more um, minority businesses, women-owned businesses, local businesses um, can procure contracts from the port as well, right?
mhm,
The port is it is supposed to benefit the communities, right? So we want to make sure, we want to look at processes and make sure that there are local vendors, local companies that can get work with the port and become a contractor or a procurement agent from the port. And
mhm,
so we've made a lot of strides in that. And then the education piece, we we work very closely with Long Beach Unified School District, and you're in Long Beach, so you understand. Long Beach, every school has they have their different academies. You pick your school based on what your interest of study is throughout
mhm,
the Long Beach Unified School District.
mhm,
So every
mhm,
school in the district has, I believe, four different paths that you can take. So we've been working with 2016 with Cabrillo High School, and we have what's called the Academy of Global um, or Global Logistics. So that's been very successful. It's one of the best programs there in Long Beach Unified School District.
Mhm.
And this past winter, I believe it was around November or December, we went into Jordan High School, which is very near and dear to close to my heart. I'm the first person from North Long Beach that has ever been represented the port in Jordan. Actually falls in the area that is highly impacted by the port, the North Long Beach
Sure.
impact. Greg, well, I'm right at the 710. I live at the 710 in Artesia,
Mhm,
and
mhm,
which is the ninth district in the city of Long Beach, and um, has if it doesn't have the highest asthma rate in the city, it's second, right? And the other one would be the west side down there where all the trains are, and
mhm.
really close to the port where we work with Cabrillo. So now we're up at Jordan, and they had an academy called the ACE Academy that dealt with construction and building trades, and we supplemented that, and now we're adding STEM and engineering, which will expose our local talent to opportunities within the supply chain that I'm talking about.
Mhm,
Because
mhm,
the
mhm,
if you can get a job at the port, that's great, but you might get a job at one of the marine terminals, or you might get
mhm,
the supply chain is really that.
mhm,
It's
mhm,
it, and for us, it's when I say us, it's an industry that you know, we I don't want to say been locked out, but we've never been exposed to.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, yeah, and I guess, coming up, you don't really think about those types of jobs, right? You just, we kind of take it for granted, but we're in a time now where, we have to bring awareness to the young people of all the different types of trades and opportunities out there. Let me ask you, speaking of jobs, all right. So, all this work is going on at the port and, the all hands on deck round the clock. And I live in a portion of Long Beach where I could hear the port at night,
Hmm.
the trains pulling out, you could hear them. It's
Hmm.
just like, man, it's going down over there. How's the safety record though? Because you got to work at this accelerated pace, but at the same time, you got to be safe and accurate.
Right, right. No, Cal OSHA, monitors the working just like every place else, but we have very safe record, and that goes to the depending on where you are. If you're close to where the terminals where they're unloading or the rail lines, all of those are very regulated industries, right?
Mhm,
And to your point, they have high safety standards, and the employees in those industries are all going through safety training all the time, right?
mhm,
Because, like
mhm,
you say, the volume and um, um, nothing out of the ordinary. We've been, every now and then there are mishaps, in this work, but it is very dangerous work at the
mhm,
port.
mhm.
But you have a highly skilled workforce. You have a highly skilled, highly trained workforce in a very regulated area. So if there were problems, it would be all over the news. Trust me.
Right, right.
It would.
People are watching, right?
It
Yeah.
seems like the only thing they ever broadcast is what's wrong. There's
Mhm,
very limited conversation on what we've done over the last few years to clean the air. Right,
mhm,
we've made more gains, um, and met every environmental requirement that has been set.
mhm,
And sometimes what happens with the environmental or the regulators is um, they seek to impose some unrealistic expectations,
mhm,
right?
mhm, mhm,
It's like, from my perspective, I want to try to, the job of the commission is strategic planning for the port. We're redoing the master plan, and
mhm.
understanding the business model and making sure that we stay competitive, and the executive staff basically report. You set the strategic path for the port, and that's been the most rewarding thing to me is getting over here and number one, seeing how efficient an organization that it is. It's a very efficient organization,
Mhm, mhm, mhm,
and just being realistic about the things that you can do,
mhm.
right?
Yeah, good stuff to hear because you don't want people to be getting hurt out there,
Oh no, no,
losing their life,
we've
right?
got a great safety record, but
Yeah,
there are accidents on the docks,
yeah,
and
yeah.
those things do happen. But
Mm,
um, and I'm sure the same with the. I'm closer with the. I have more me personally. I have more contact with the 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 dock workers than the rail workers.
I see.
From my perspective, I like to get the perspective of the people doing the work
Hmm.
because that helps me in forming policy.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, my background. I came up through labor, so I'm a firm believer that if if the people that are doing the work have input in how to fix processes, most of the time they work
Hmm. Hmm.
right.
Hmm.
And I think one of the things that we do, not only at the port but in just all aspects of life, is you got these people in high level positions that got all the answers when you can get some valuable information from the folks that are on the ground. So
That's right.
I try to stay as close to the people on the ground as I possibly can.
Hmm.
As you can imagine, the more you elevate, the harder that is to do.
Hmm.
But it's been vital in me getting to where I am, and
Hmm.
I try to maintain that posture.
Hmm. Hmm. We know. Speaking of policy, here is change lanes a little bit, and
All right.
just chit chat about the political landscape. I mean, the port is essentially a city department. We may have a change well, we will have a change in mayors and all of that. And man, congressional districts, state offices, council. Good grief. We just came out of a bunch of election stuff and now we got to make up our mind again. you know.
Well, when we do this one, couple of things. This is from my perspective. This is we're really in a historic place.
Mhm.
Um, when I was on the city council in Long Beach, the Long Beach election was in April.
Mhm.
The current mayor, Mayor Garcia, who is elected not to run for his final term, but is running to replace our Congressman Alan Lowenthal. Um, to your point, leaves a vacancy where we're gonna have a new mayor.
Mhm.
We're gonna
Mhm.
have a new mayor. But the good thing about that, I think, is that um, now Long Beach's election is aligned with the counties.
Mhm.
When you have uh, and it costs the city less money.
Mhm.
So when we're conducting when the city, when I say we, I'm talking from a city's perspective. If
Sure.
we're conducting a election in April, then our city clerk, our city is responsible for the whole bill. But if we're doing an election the same time as everybody else in the county, then the county kind of foots that bill. So it's a good thing for the city. We tried to move that when we were on the council about decade ago, 7, 8 years.
Mhm.
I don't know, it was between 8 and 10 years ago,
Mhm.
and it didn't pass. But
Mhm.
um, this current council had moved it, and this is actually our second election on this cycle,
Mhm.
which means exactly what you said. We're going to have a new mayor.
Mhm.
We're going
Mhm.
to have a new congressman. All of our district lines have been redrawn, right? So, and I actually just looked at the new district. I think the final new district maps just came out yesterday or a couple of
Mhm.
days ago.
Mhm.
So every district has been redrawn. So this is an important election for the city because you're basically going to have a change in leadership. You've been under the Garcia administration for the last 8 years,
Mhm.
and I will say this. Uh, I think Robert Garcia has been a great mayor for the city of Long Beach.
I agree.
I served with him on the council, and the leadership that he exhibited as mayor. Um, I think, I think it's been exemplary.
Mhm.
He's, this council, and um, they've really done a good job of steering the ship.
And
Now,
especially through the
but the next
storm
guy,
of the pandemic, man, it's like the pandemic unprecedented, and they've had to call audible after audible just to handle the pandemic,
wow, it's really been something, Greg. And
Mhm,
the good thing about us in Long Beach is that we have our own health department.
mhm.
We have a port. Long Beach is really a big city. It's a big city with a small time flavor and sometimes a small time attitude. But Long Beach is actually bigger than Houston. Long Beach is bigger than Philadelphia. Long Beach is a pretty big city,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
the the we've got a great waterfront. You know, um, before the pandemic, tourism was huge for us, and I think for the pandemic recovery, um, the planning, and I'm sure the city fathers and those that are doing this stuff every day are thinking about how the recovery and how we help the tourism industry get
Mhm,
back, because that's huge to the bottom line of Long Beach for their revenue.
mhm, mhm. So we would say that folks coming in, attracting tourism is a big deal. What are some of the other, issues that they really need to tackle? I mean, um, let's talk about this. Let's focus in on it. Okay, so this thing, the framework of racial reconciliation. So for me, I was just trying to figure it out, right? Okay, what are we reconciling? Is what I wanted to know from the beginning. But now that the politicians have created this framework, what is the challenge to execute the framework for racial reconciliation for the next mayor? Is it possible that one of the conservative side could come and just overturn and say, "Hey, I'm just going to have it. We don't want equity," or what's the challenge?
It's That's very possible. So if we go specifically to the mayor's race, um, if you look at um, that whole process that went through, that was instituted by Vice Mayor Rex Richardson, who was running for mayor, and he's kind of been the champion for equity on the council. I would personally say he's the progressive leader on the council. Some would say I'm biased, but
Mhm.
um, I mean, just look at the body of work. That's you know, that's what I go by. Look at the work. So being a brainchild of the vice mayor who's running for mayor, I would think that um, if he was to win, you'd probably see more, because they have created an office of equity
Mhm,
in
mhm,
the city to look at those kind of things. I can't say to the staffing level of the office, but they have created that, and that was I believe an outcome of one of the things that the vice mayor was talking about. So I would just think from a logical perspective, if he were to become mayor, it would be a priority. Now, the other candidate, who was a friend, very capable, but might not be might not be their focus,
mhm, mhm, mhm,
right? We're talking about equity, and we talked about it briefly at the beginning. One of the things that I was really focused on in coming to the port was equity in that sense, particularly in the procurement area,
mhm,
making sure that what we talked about, women and people of color and local businesses get a real legitimate shot at contracting opportunities that come out of the port. And
mhm,
see, equity could fall in the sense of, well, we can say we're going to hire this many of whatever demographic we choose, but are there internal policies that we have that are going to preclude the people that we say we want to reach? For instance, you're a small
mhm,
business, Greg. We're trying to encourage you to get a contract with the port, but under our guidelines, you have to have $1.5 million of insurance. Well, you're not you don't need $1.5 million in insurance of what you're doing. So, do we have internal policies that we need to address to make sure we can accomplish what we say we want to do?
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
And I think you have the same. I think you have the same situation in at least this choice of mayors for us.
Mhm, mhm,
Right?
mhm.
You have one candidate that has been championed in that, and
That's interesting. I'm just kind of what you just said. I'm just kind of processing that right now because we hold other city contracts in other cities in the region, and oftentimes, like the insurance requirement. You're like, okay, I don't need that much insurance.
right,
To do what you're asking me to do. And then sometimes you do miss out, right?
right. Well,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
would be something that would eliminate you. So
yes.
those are the kind of things that if you're truly looking at equity, you've got to delve into,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
You've got to look at your internal processes, right? It's easy to come up and say, "Oh, we're gonna do these things," but do we have processes internally that and let's be real, that's the way this stuff works.
Hmm.
We
Hmm.
yeah, we'll they're only going to be on the commission for a few years. We'll put the program in order, but unless we change some processes, it's never going to work.
Sure, 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 sure. Now, when we look across the region now, I mean, we have, Black political power. Certainly, our representation. We have a propitious opportunity right now to, I would say, improve representation. And what I mean by that, so Karen Bass, mayor of Los Angeles, could be Rex Richardson in Long Beach, Emma Sharif in Compton, Mayor Butts over there in Inglewood. Man, brothers,
You forgot Lula and Carson.
Lula and
Lula
Carson. Yes,
Carson.
yes. That's wow. That's impressive.
It really could be,
Could be.
especially when you think about the perspective. Um, you know, I'm a boy from Compton,
Hmm.
I've been in the South Bay, Compton, Carson, Long Beach, Harbor City. I've lived in all of those over 60 years, right?
Hmm.
And what we've
Whatever.
always seen, um, we used to have, when I was traditional black neighborhoods,
Hmm. Hmm.
and we don't you don't see that anymore. So your black elected officials have to really transcend race,
Hmm.
right? They really have to be issue oriented and speak to what the will of the people.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I think what you just laid out is a huge opportunity because all of them, which I know very well and are some of the best people in policy. I have the utmost respect for Karen Bass. She's never changed. She's the same person she was when she was a community
Yep.
activist. Known Lula for years. Lula is I'm talking about people that are grounded,
Right.
not only morally but spiritually.
Yes.
Emma
Yes.
is Emma is grounded. Lula is grounded. Uh, Karen is grounded, and Rex Richardson is grounded. And out of all of those, of course, he's the youngest. He's the guy's not even 40 years old,
Hmm. Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And um, it's a great opportunity, and I think it's something that we should look at because they're what I would love to see if all the cards landed right is some real collaboration between those entities because you know that opportunity may not present itself ever again in the way that it is
Correct.
right now because
Yes.
all of those cities, it's a testament for Lula to as a black woman to be the mayor of Compton. It's a testament to Emma, and the population in Compton is almost almost 90% Latino in Compton.
Mhm, mhm, mhm,
We're
mhm.
talking about population. I'm not talking about voting population, but let's be honest. If I'm the Latino caucus, everybody in the city's not illegal. We
Right.
gotta we just gotta organize and right. So that's a testament. If Mr. Richardson wins, he will be the first black mayor of Long Beach.
Mhm, mhm. It's all about coalition building, right? And the things, the lessons we learned as we watch Barack Obama elevate to the presidency. I mean, he was able to, successfully build coalitions, in a very granular level, right, in these communities. And I think it's on everybody. I mean, Rex, Karen Bass, everybody's got to really be about the art, right, of building coalitions between these various communities. When you look at coalition building, how do we bring communities together? How do we bring? Okay, let's look at Long Beach. Long Beach got Black folk, Latinos, Cambodians. It's like you look at the city meetings on the online, and they've got five different languages translating into, how do we
Uh,
successfully build
that was my
coalitions
legislation. I moved that as a city council member.
to get
The
all the languages in?
the language access.
Wow,
Yeah.
there's a lot.
Well, to your point, what you start, I think your starting place is your common interests.
uh,
Coalition is about common interests.
uh,
So with each of those entities, right, we're all separate and we all have our own interests. But where's that place where we can all agree and then we work out from there?
mm,
And I think all of those I don't know Brother Butts. I know all the rest of them. I don't know, bro. We've met a few times, we've been in a few meetings, but I don't personally know him.
mm,
I knew
mm,
the previous mayor that he defeated.
mm,
Um, but all the rest of them, I know are coalition builders.
mm,
That's part of their DNA, and I
mm,
believe that's part of the reason why. Not part of it. It's a big part of the reason why they're in these positions that they're in today. Even with Emma and Lula, being successful, but with Rex and Karen, just having an opportunity, right, and having a legitimate shot, because both Rex and Karen can win.
mm,
I
mm,
firmly believe that both
mm,
Rex and Karen can win. And
mm.
if that happens, what you just said, that changes the whole complexion of the region.
Sure.
It
Mm.
changes it in a way that we haven't seen in a long time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah. This is
you've never seen a black woman as mayor of Los Angeles. You've never seen a black man as mayor of Long Beach. You've had another black woman mayor in Carson, and you've had black women mayor in Compton, and you've had black men um, in Inglewood. But having those five cities at the same time could be really meaningful. You know,
Yeah, Mayor Butts, his background is law enforcement.
absolutely.
He's the popo, but I have to say he's I have some roots over there in Inglewood, and I'm gonna tell you something. He's done a lot for the city, and it was off the chain. I was proud of them this last couple of weeks. As they go host the Super Bowl and everything like that. Proud of Inglewood, and I really hats off to him. I do feel like he's still got some challenges, and I'm not sure how many more terms he has and all of that, but I do know that the city has some challenges as it goes through its growing pains. And also too, what is the result of gentrification? Because folks are the complexion of the residency is changing.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it's you got to have a few dollars to live there now.
Well, it's becoming that way for all of Southern California.
Hmm. Hmm.
My wife is a realtor, and she um, I went with her to one of her open houses a few weeks ago, and there were houses in Compton, which traditionally, before I moved back to Long Beach, I lived in Compton for about a decade.
Hmm.
Um, the house that I was in 20 years ago is getting upwards to $1 million now in
Right,
Compton,
right, right.
and that in itself, I think, is another challenge, particularly for our youth
Hmm.
and home ownership. How do we create paths for home ownerships,
Hmm. Hmm.
especially in a market like this, where we're going to get to the point where the median home price in LA County, it may already be that, is upwards of $600,000, and
Right.
it probably is close to that right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. 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 You know, what about the homeless situation? It's interesting. We had Jan Perry on a couple of weeks ago, who is talking about her new job as executive director of the Shelter Partnership, and a very active and large organization tackling this homeless problem in LA, right? But well, now she's just announced that she's running for Congress. I want to say the 37th district. Um,
What seat is that? Do you know right now?
I can't remember off. I don't have my notes, but I want to say I can't remember who's sitting in that one.
Okay, I'll look that up.
Yeah, but she, the homeless situation is bananas, and in Long Beach, I was just learning that one of the hotels in the East Village Arts District had a voucher program for to house the houseless, the homeless, and but what it did is caused a lot of problems with the people who owned those condos and everything like that down there. And because I mean, let's just face it, sometime the drug culture and all of that is definitely a part of homelessness. And it just disturbed the peace when the hotel did that. And so maybe that's not exactly the answer. Are politicians shooting in the dark, or what do you think should happen? And for these incoming, if they should win, how do they tackle this homeless problem?
Well, um, I think this also is a collaborative. You can do what you can for the municipality. Let's just talk Long Beach specific.
Hmm.
Long Beach has the ability to make their own ordinances. I think the wiser, thing to do would be to work with some kind of regional plan. Now, you
Hmm.
mentioned condos. There are plenty of ideas about maybe old hotels, vacant hotels, um, uh, those kind of things. Maybe not so much condos, but when you think about the district that I formerly represented, which is um, North Long Beach going into Compton, borders Paramount, Artesia, Bellflower,
Hmm.
Rancho Dominguez, and Compton. So, you know, um, when I was a policymaker, I tried to communicate with those surrounding cities, talk about coalition building, right?
Hmm.
So that we could work collaboratively on those issues that we had together, because we have
Hmm.
more strength that way, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Instead of one of us. And I think the homeless situation is another one of those um, opportunities where you can do that. Long Beach has been making some really bold moves, like you said, and maybe they might work out. But I know it is one of the big priorities, and I, I believe it's one of the key points of Vice Mayor Richardson's campaign, and how we tackle that. So,
Mhm, mhm, mhm. It's interesting. I was listening to Vice Mayor Richardson, and he was, speaking about how the downtown Long Beach area gets all the love, and other uh, the districts in the north, are always are shortchanged and whatnot. I was just like, my little studio is in downtown. I would tell you that. It's not easy being cheesy in the downtown Long Beach area. We need some help, and so we really need to make sure that whoever is running for mayor pays attention to downtown, because it's not what it looks like. you know. down
Well,
there.
that's why the input of people like, see, people on the ground, right? Going back to my theology, or on talking to, when you say downtown, you look at the development and all the things that have happened. Because one of the things that happens traditionally is, a decade and a half, 2 decades ago, um, downtown was somewhat impoverished, and you had a lot more um, affordable housing there, right?
Mhm,
Because
mhm,
as they developed and became what it is now, when you start moving out the folks that were there that were maybe low income, what traditionally happens in Long Beach is that they move to the north. If you
mhm,
look at the new map, just look at the um, geography of the new maps.
mhm,
When you
mhm.
look at the new maps and you look at the districts, it's like some districts are so broad and sparsed out, and then you get up here to 9, and it's a really really small district, and it gets smaller and smaller because it only touches 8. So every
Mm.
time, it's the largest district in the city, has been, and I'm going a long way to make a point.
Yeah.
um, as people move from other areas, the affordable area had been North Long Beach,
Mhm, mhm.
right? So we're vast in population and density. But if you go look at the map is getting smaller. And so the next time they do this census, they're going to really have to redo the maps totally.
Mhm,
I'm talking
mhm.
about totally, because eventually, uh, I've always said this, the ninth district is getting smaller in geography every census and still grows in population. So
Yeah.
you're going to have to redo the maps entirely. And that's going to become, because this whole process, people identify with their neighborhoods and their council districts, and this is the first time redistricting has been done by politicians used to draw the line. So if you know, and there were challenges there, but this process here has been very very interesting to me. And
Yeah.
one of the
Yeah.
other challenges is how much representation. There were very few of our folks that were involved, and folks reached out, right? And we have to get involved in policy, man. We have to get
Mhm,
involved. We
mhm.
have to get involved in our communities. At I'm talking about at a gut level, like in your neighborhood. That's how I was
Mhm,
able to win city council.
mhm,
Know the
mhm.
people in my neighborhood. I talk to people in my neighborhood. They needed information. I give them the information, right? And
Sure.
then you just broaden that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm of the mindset though that they didn't complete the census just because I was involved in the census, and you know
I
what?
was
The
too.
day they shut everything down, we were having our big meeting. COVID stopped our counting.
I was doing the count too as well, so I
Yeah.
know exactly what you're talking about. And you have to remember who was in the White House at that time,
Right. Yeah.
because going to your point on how President Obama was able to coalition build and win the presidency, right? It really set the model for modern day politics. The
Mhm,
way
mhm,
the way politics are done. Obama kind of
mhm.
laid the groundwork, and that translates. You of course he was running on a scale for the whole nation, but that can translate to a local municipality if you're
Right.
a good organizer.
Right. 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 Yeah. 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 I don't think we finished that census. So that's what this one has to have an asterisk next to it. you know.
Well, the powers that be don't want to have a count, because at the end of the
Yeah.
day, um, the dominant culture is on the verge of becoming the
Yes.
minority culture, and conservative. Being a conservative is about what? Conserving what you have.
Right. Right.
it's,
Right.
it's
Right.
it's not about equity,
Yeah.
right? It's not about expanding the pie. So this dialogue that we find ourselves in now, um, it's going to take bold, and it's going to take bold leadership. And everybody, this is what happens in politics, because we all say the same thing. I'm going to do this, and I'm going. Once you get there, you find out it's not designed for you to do that.
Right.
You got to figure out, how can I work within this system to get this done.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that takes a little bit of time
Yeah.
because the system is working exactly the way it's supposed to work. It's not looking for you to come in and tinker it or change it.
I mean, I'm surprised at how many conservatives are here in such a progressive city of Long Beach. I'll go over to one of my favorite Mexican food restaurants, and you're sitting you know, on the patio there and overlooking one of the waterways, and the boats are parked there, and there's Trump, Trump, Trump flags, Trump, 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 Trump. And I'm like, wow, you would never think that this was such a conservative, you know, po- that the conservatives would be so plentiful in this area, but they are definitely here.
Oh, absolutely. Um, a couple of decades ago, when I worked on the Gray Davis recall
Mhm.
campaign, Long Beach was the only city in LA County that Arnold Schwarzenegger won. Think
Wow.
about that.
Wow.
And when you think about how we border Orange County, um, and Orange County has changed demographically, um, and um, politically in the last 10 or 15 years.
Mhm.
It's turning from red to blue,
Mhm.
but a lot of that blue, I mean red, overflows into areas of our city,
Mhm. Mhm.
and um, mostly people of influence
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
and resource.
Right. Right.
And what you see now is, I mean, um, you got to look at the composition of the council right now. You got a 9-member city council. You've got one white male out of 9. You've got one, two, how many women? 2 women, 3 women.
3 women.
Four.
4. Wait, whoa.
Oh, 4 women, right?
Margot Price,
Four, right. I forgot.
Zendejas,
Yeah, I forgot
Allen.
about
4.
the newly. Oh no, wait, 5, because I forgot about Cindy too.
Uh-huh.
And you have 2 African American males. You have a
Mhm.
Cambodian. You have
Mhm.
Latinos. It's really representative of the city of Long
Of
Beach
the
if you
city,
really look
yeah.
at it. If you really look at the composition of our council,
Wow.
and and I would say Robert is a pretty progressive leader, and Rex and Robert are similar, but they're different in their experiences.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Um, so we'll see, and
We'll
then
see. Well, the one thing is people gotta get out to vote, and
got
that's
to get
what,
out the vote.
we're gonna leave everybody with that, certainly whatever side draw, get out there and vote,
That's right.
participate, participate, participate. Don't sit on the sidelines, exercise your right. Other areas, they're trying to suppress the vote, going through great effort to suppress the vote of the people. So we've got to stand up, cast your vote, make it happen. They're making it easier for us to vote too. That's a good thing.
That's right.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Any last words you want to say to the people?
Um, I just want to echo what you just said. This is a really important election cycle. Not just for Long Beach, but for all of the region, and for us in particular as Black folks, we have to get involved in civics.
Mhm.
You have to get involved and know what's going on in your city council. Know what's going on in your neighborhood. Does your
Mhm.
neighborhood have a neighborhood association? Because that's, you talked about collaboration. It. And I remember you when you introduced me, you said a seat at the table. I always say this: if you don't have a seat at the table, you ultimately end up on the menu.
Mhm.
And it's not enough for us to have a seat at the table now. We have to have influence because at some tables they just want you there to say, "See, I got you there," but you got to have influence at the table.
Mhm.
We have to get to the point where we have influence at the table, and to do that, we got to get to the table. That's why we have to get involved in civics. We have to know what's going on in our community, and advocate,
Mhm.
advocate for the things you want. The scripture says you have not because you ask not. And people have such an apathy for politics, but I got involved in this kind of work because I thought I could do a better job than the person that was in office,
That's right.
and that proved to be true.
Right. Right. Right.
So,
That's right.
uh, but you gotta, you know, you gotta stick your neck out, and there's, you know, when we give back, working in your community kind of is one of the most rewarding things you can do.
Yeah, I agree with that. 200%.
Yes, sir. Man,
Yeah.
it's always great talking with you, man.
Man, always
You
great
and I
talking
could
to
go
you.
for a couple of hours, but
Yes.
it's all good, sir.
All right. All right. Look, hey, if you need some help, I got a hard hat around here somewhere. I get out there on the port and,
I'll
try
find
to.
something for you to do. I can find something.
Very good, you guys. Stephen Neal, president of the Harbor Commission in Long Beach, and just a good man, and really just thankful for you to come and share some punditry on, on what's going on around us, his wisdom and, wise counsel. He's in the game, he's out there making it happen and, giving us some wisdom and some good intel, as you say, on what's going on. We're going to start on Thursday the series, you guys, on Blacks in classical music. We're trying to work with a number of different people around the region to try to examine African Americans in the classical music genre. There's plenty of us out there. We're breaking. You see, the sister won the ice skating race.
Mm-hmm.
A couple years ago, who would have thought?
Right.
And as a person from the roller rink world, I'm gonna tell you something. I guess she said I started roller skating, so yeah, she was
That,
over there and we're on all wheels.
but that goes to my point about having exposure.
Yeah,
Anything that we're exposed to, we can excel in.
yeah.
We just need the exposure.
One time, me and super producer Rhonda Love were talking about the gymnastics and the success of all the sisters in gymnastics. She said, "Oh, where does that come from?" It's like, think about it. Back on the playground, the girls were on the monkey bars and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And now, put that into the context of the discipline of gymnastics, and they're
Exactly.
excelling. Yeah, that's what.
Exactly.
Wow, wow, wow.
But
All right, y'all.
just think about 50 years ago when we weren't allowed to play quarterback in the NFL or
Wow,
offensive lineman. I
wow.
grew up remembering that you
Right,
couldn't be an offensive lineman because you didn't have it up here.
right.
And then look at the rosters of your teams today, and look at where the best players are.
Isn't that
Just
something? Because Dad used to say, "Oh, there'll never be a black quarterback."
exposure, Greg. That's
Yeah,
we the more exposure we have, and the more interest we take in those things that we're exposed to, we can make a difference. Because when you have diversity, diversity really gives you the ability to lift everyone, right? If
mhm,
you've only got one perspective, you've only got one perspective.
mhm,
So
mhm.
I'll just end there.
That's right.
Diversity is important, in my aspect to policy making, because you want to take in the position of everyone that's involved in
Yeah.
theory.
Forward ever, backward never. That's it. All right, y'all. Yeah, we got waylaid by Facebook, but that's okay. We're gonna post this on there after it is recorded and everything from YouTube. We'll get on Facebook somehow. We shall not be moved, but we also will be on our Facebook page, Coffee Conversations with Greg J. We're also gonna repurpose the audio so you can hear the audio only version wherever you get your favorite podcast, Spreaker, iHeart, Google, Apple, just wherever it is, just type in there Coffee Conversations with Greg J. You'll see it. Coming out, we're redeveloping our Beach City Radio, beachcityradio.com. We're coming out with a news platform, Beach City Perspective. A lot going on, so stay tuned in. Get the news, get the cultural content. That's what we're doing over here. All from Long Beach. That's where we are. We live in Long Beach, but we're touching the world.
That's right.
you know. Love one another, y'all. Love one another. Love one another. Peace and blessings.